Hi guys, and welcome to World of Tanks Review. I'm Buddy1927, and today we are on the test server for patch 9.5, and we are reviewing the FV4005 Stage 2 Tier 10 tank destroyer in the new British tank destroyer line. Now, before we get into this tank, there's a couple things I need to go over. First of all, this is a test server. Any of the information stacks or anything like that can be changed and probably will be changed as the test server goes along, and possibly and more than likely will change when it goes from the test server to the live patch. One thing I've noticed in the couple years I've done test servers for World of Tanks is the final product is different from the way it was in the game on the test server. So you need to be leery of that. So don't say this is the way the tank's going to come live when 9.5 comes out. There probably will be some changes. Hopefully there will be some changes. Second of all, as I said before, I've done test servers for World of Tanks for the past couple of years, and this is the worst test server I've ever played on, and I'll tell you the real reason. I tried to get footage for this tank. I played this tank, not counting the other tanks I've tried to play. On this tank, I tried to play 15 matches in this tank. 11 out of the 15 matches I was team killed within the first 30 seconds as the game started. One thing, unless this is a new game style play where you're playing against 3 teams instead of 2 teams, the teams being the green, the red, now you're playing against the blue teams now too. On average, out of all the games I've played, there has been a minimum of 4 blue tanks at the end of every match I've played. Now, there might be some of the games a little less and some of the games a little bit more, but on average, about 4 blue tanks at the end of all the battles. That's a lot of team killing going on. And one thing I've noticed, and this server is open to the Russian server, the European server, and the American server, and the majority of the players are the Russians are on the Russian server. And if you are not on the Russian server, you will be team killed. Because I've seen European being team killed, myself and being on the U.S. server being team killed. But like I said, the majority of the players are Russians playing on the Russian server. There is, I've seen a few. The next server is actually the European server, and I have yet seen one U.S. player other than myself on the test server. So the majority of the players are on the Russian and the European server, being the Russians being the more predominant. So if you're not on their server, you will be team killed. That's just the way it is, and I do not like that. So because of that, I have not been able to get any really good footage for a lot of the tanks I've been trying to, especially this tank. Like I said, I played 15 matches. Out of the 15 matches, 11 of them I was team killed. So that's just the way this server is. So the rest of my reviews on patch 9.5 will be mainly in the garage, unless I get lucky and actually have a fair team and a good battle that I can actually use footage for my YouTube videos. But let's go over this tank real quick. Like I said, this is the FV4005 Stage 2 Tier 10 tank destroyer in the British line. Let's take a look at the tech tree real quick, and we'll show you how to get there. Of course, you start off with the British tank line, and you start off with the medium 1. And then you go down to the Cruiser 1, the Cruiser 2, and the Valentine. Now, if you are planning on going down this line, the new tank destroyer line, when 9.5 gets released, I will recommend this. Make sure you have the Cruiser 1, 2, and Valentine research, because once 9.5, you start off with the Tier 5 Archer, which starts off the new British line. And it goes all the way to the Tier 10 4005 Stage 2 tank destroyer. Now, if you're also planning on going down the new British medium line, make sure you have the M2 and the Stuart 1-4 research, because from there you have the 3 new British tanks, which is the Tier 4 Grant, the Tier 5 Sherman 3, and a Tier 6 Firefly. So if you have researched all the way to the Stuart 1-4 or the Valentine, you are good to go on the new line when it goes live on when 9.5 goes live. So let's take a look at how the Stage 2 comes stocked. It comes stocked with everything being Tier 10. We'll go over the gun a little bit later, but everything is a Tier 10. You only have one gun option. Okay, now there's a lot of things I do not like about this tank. I really don't like this tank at all. Of course, I'm playing on a test server where I'm being team killed all the time, so it's kind of hard to actually make a fair judgment when I've only had 4 somewhat playable matches on this thing. But let's take a look at the specs on this thing. And the specs, just to let you know, it's right here in the garage. All I'm doing is blowing it up. I'm not pasting it from somewhere else. It's the same one that's in the garage. So all this information is coming from World of Tanks. Just to let you know. And remember, this is a test server, so the information may change when it goes to 9.5 live. So it starts off with 1,850 hit points. And you're going to need 1,850 hit points just to try to stay alive in this in the matches. Engine horsepower is actually pretty good at 650. The top speed on this thing is 35 kilometers per hour. That's actually pretty good, and the tank is, from what I've done so far, is somewhat maneuverable with that top speed, and that's actually pretty good for a Tier 10 tank destroyer. Traverse speed is 30 degrees per second. I do recommend that your first skill your driver learns is clutch braking, which will help increase that. And this is what I'm talking about right here, right now. 76, 50, and 38 is the hull armor on this thing, front, side, and rear. So there's not much armor on the hull on this thing. The turret has 14, 14, and 14, front, side, and rear. So basically what you got is the hull has sheet metal, and you have aluminum foil for the turret. So we'll go over the gun here. The turret traverse speed on this thing is 12 degrees per second, and that's not good. And I'll go over the turret a little bit this before I go over the gun on this thing. It has 390 view range, which isn't good at all for a tank destroyer. Remember, the max view is 550, so the view range on this thing is not that good. Signal range is 750, which is actually pretty good. Okay, let's go with the hull and turret. Only advantage you have on this hull is the slope in the front here. I've had a few ricochets that did no damage to me right here, but you have no armor on this tank, top or bottom. Everything on here, almost every tank in the game can penetrate you. Even a Tier 1 tank can penetrate you that is shooting gold rounds, because it has no armor. Here on the rear, you got this big door. And in one of the matches I had, I got shot dead center in that door. I got ammo racked and one-shotted by a medium. Not on the enemy team, on my team within 30 seconds after the game started. He shot me right there. He ammo racked me, and my turret went flying in the air. So, and it was, I think it was one of the BCs that actually one-shotted me with that. So this tank is very one-shottable to the higher tier tanks, tier 9s and tier 10 tanks. So you gotta make sure you are careful with this thing. Now for the gun. This turret does not turn 360 degrees, does not turn 180 degrees. It does not turn 90 degrees. It has very low turn radius. Your gun can go no further than from this fender to the outside fender to the outside fender on the other side. So you really got to play this tank as a front-loaded tank, not a turreted tank destroyer. So that's one thing you got to make sure you're done. And because it has no armor on it, you got to be sure you play. I would play this tank in the rear. You definitely cannot brawl with this tank. But you might be able to do some flanking. Best way to do this is play it as a sniper tank, and also know once you shoot, this has a very low camo rating value. So once you shoot, make sure you relocate, and you got 30 seconds to reload. Let's go over the gun here. Now the gun is a 182.9 caliber gun. Rate of fire is 2 rounds per minute, so that leaves you with a 30-second reload. Like I said, it's basically an arty gun that was put on a couple tracks and point forward. Average damage is 310, 230, and 92. That's average penetration. Average damage is 1,150, 1,750, 1,750. This gun is actually pretty accurate at .38 at 100 meters, so it's a pretty accurate gun. Aiming time on this thing sucks. You got 3 seconds to aim, so it has a long aiming time. This is the same gun that is on the FV4005 183. So it's the same gun that's on what everybody calls the Death Star. Let's go over the shells individually. Start off with AP 233 to 388 in pen, which is pretty good. 863 to 1,438 in damage, which is also pretty good. This for AP round. Next round is an HE, which is the 182.9 high explosive Hesh Mark 1. So this is actually a Hesh round. Average pin on this is actually pretty good at 173 to 288. Damage on this thing is excellent at 1,313 to 2118 in damage. So that's excellent. And it has a burst radius of 5.05 meters. So that's actually pretty good. With this one battle, I actually got a chance to fire this gun, and I actually fired a Hesh round with it. I one-shotted the FV4005 4005 stage 2 on the enemy team, and I actually did 21 in damage on him. Of course, he only had 1850 in it. I knocked out his entire crew. The critical hit credit was the entire crew and his engine, and it was not an ammo rack. So this round is pretty good. Now the other HE is the high explosive HE Mark 1. Doesn't have the penetration that the Hesh round does at 69 to 115, but it still has the same damage and same burst radius. Now, as you can see, I actually have 4 rounds of each. You can only hold 12 rounds in this big tank. You can only hold 12 rounds of ammunition. When it goes live, and when eventually I do decide to go down this line and get to the tier 10, I will probably carry 7 and 4. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, 7 and 4. 7 AP and 4 of the HESH rounds. I will not bother with the HE rounds at all. Main reason is the HESH round has a higher pin rate and it does the same damage. So I'd rather have the higher penetration shell with the 2 HEs compared to the HESH and the HE compared. I'd rather have those instead of the HE. That's just my opinion. You can do whatever you want. So that's the tank in general, guys. It's a big tank. It has no armor. It has a big ass gun. I recommend you put your best crew in here that you have in the British tank destroyer line. Put it in here, and probably will do a little bit better. The higher the crew, the higher the better the tank performs. Anybody disagrees with that, let's read the information about crews on World Tank Wiki. The more experienced the crew, the better the tank performs. Period. End of conversation. This tank is nothing but a cannon on wheels with no armor. So keep that in mind. So if you like this video, please like us on YouTube. If you have any comments about this video, please leave it on my YouTube page. And keep it clean. Also, if you haven't done yet, subscribe to my channel. That way you know when the latest videos I do come out. So I'd like to thank you for watching, and do me a favor, be safe out there and save some tanks on the battlefield for me. You all have a good day.